I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.
Good night, y'all. Okay. Yeah, it's 12:56 a.m. and it's June 10th, 2025. When I was at work Sunday night, I was dibbling and dabbling with my iPad because I'm still on this reparations thing. This reparation idea I'm on, and I'm watching the news, what's going on in California, and I'm over here thinking, and then I'm looking at the UBI, uh, Universal Basic Income, and I'm reading that, and then I saw an article that I didn't even know. Um, I didn't know that the founding fathers, some of the founding fathers wanted a UBI type system, and it would cover things like universal health care and single mothers. you know yeah, it cover a whole lot of things, because you always hear conservatives like to come online and talk about how you know they want to bring the country back to the founding. And then I'm looking at some of the founding fathers that's advocating for UBI, and also the abolition of slavery. And there's two of them that comes to my mind because I'm researching. The latter. I've already known his plan when it comes to abolition of slavery and what to do after you got slaves freed. So I'm not really going to basically get on Benjamin Franklin, but I'm going to talk about Thomas Paine, right? And we need to start knowing about his history, because the the right wing in America, the right wing in Canada and Great Britain, they love to say, well, if you care about single mothers, or you care about childless, you know, no, not childless, people who have children but don't have a spouse, we should just look down upon them because as savages. And they always been putting this on. You got your Charlie Kirks, your Matthew Walsh of the world, always putting this out there. See, I always believe that facts matter. I believe that when you put out facts, right? When you put out facts and information out, people will make the best decision based on the information that you give them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and read some of this, because this was kind of ahead of its time, and I'm gonna read out of a source because I can't read the old style English type. So I'm going to read from the basics of modern day English wording type. So this is Thomas Paine's pamphlet called Agrarian Justice Opposed to Agrarian Law and Agrarian Monopolies, being a plan for mentoring or monitoring. I can't meliorating the condition of man. I think that's the right word. I can't pronounce it. Or by creating in every nation a national fund. And this kind of kins to my idea about reparations, but I'm gonna talk about that. I did a video on that a long time ago, but I kind of gave up on the idea because how toxic the FBA ADOS movement is. I kind of gave up on it. But here is what it says here, right? To pay every person when arrive at the age of 21 years the sum of 15 pounds sterling, enable him or her. Yes, Thomas Paine did believe in women's rights and in women's suffrage. Women's suffrage at the time. See, I didn't learn about this in school. Didn't learn this about in college until the latter part of college, and now they never taught you this in school though. Enable him or her to begin the world, and also 10 pounds sterling per autumn during life to every person now living of the age of 50 years, and all others when they shall arrive at that age, to enable them to live in old age without wretchedness and go decently out of the world. Well, one of your founding fathers sit here talking about he wants the welfare state. So is Thomas Paine a liberal, or worse, a socialist, if not communist? If not outright communist. And I'm gonna go ahead and put this up here, so everybody can see here and see. I'm just doing this as a hobby here. Yeah. So it's right here in front. So the question got to ask is he a socialist? Now I'm gonna read the preface. I don't know. Should I read the preface? No, I ain't gonna read that. But it's him explaining, it. But to preserve the benefits of what is called a civilized life, and to remedy at the same time, the evil it produced ought to be considered as one of the first objects of reform legislation. Whether that state is proudly, perhaps erroneously called civilization, has most promoted or most injured the general happiness of man, it is a question that may strongly contest. On one side, the spectator is dazzled by the splendid appearances. On the other, he's shocked by the extreme of the wretchedness, both of which he has erect. The most influent and the most miserable of the human race are to be found in the countries that are called civilized. To understand what state of society ought to be, it is necessary to have some idea of the natural and the primitive state of man, such as it is at this day among the Indians of North America. There is not in that state any of these spectacles of human misery, which poverty and want presents to our eyes. In all towns and streets of Europe, poverty, therefore, is a thing called by which is called civilized life. It does not exist in the natural state. On the other hand, the natural state is without the advantages which flow from agriculture, arts, science, and manufactures. The life of an Indian is continual to holiday compared to the poor old Europe, the poor of Europe. And on the other hand, it appears to be abject to compare to the rich. Civilization, therefore, which is so-called, has operated two ways to make one part of society more affluent and the other part more wretched. Then would be called a lot of either in a natural state. It is always possible to go from the natural to the civilized state, but it is never possible to go from the civilized to the natural state. The reason is that man in a natural state, sustained by substance, by hunting, requires 10 times the quantity of land to range over to procure himself substance, then would support in a civilized state where the earth is cultivated. When therefore a country becomes populous by the additional aids of cultivation, arts, science, there is a necessary of preserving things in that state, because without it there cannot be subsistence for more perhaps than a 10th part of its inhabitants. The thing therefore now is to be done is to remedy the evils and preserve the benefits that have risen to society by passing from the natural to which is called the civilized state. Taking the matter upon the ground, on this ground, the first principle of civilization ought to be, have been, and ought to be, still be, that the condition of every person born into the world after the state of civilization commences ought not to be worse than if he had been born before that period. The fact is that the condition of millions in every country of Europe is far worse than if they had been born before civilization began, or had been born among the Indians of North America of the present day. I will show how this fact has happened. It is a position not to be controverted that the earth is in the natural, uncultivated state, was and ever would be, continue to be the common property of the human race. In that state, every man would be born to poverty. No, not poverty, property. Excuse me. He would have been a joint life proprietor with the rest of the property of the soil in all its natural productions, vegetable and animal. But the earth in its natural state, as said before stated, is capable of supporting but a small number of inhabitants compared with that is capable of doing in a cultivated state. And as it is impossible to separate the improvement made by cultivation from the earth itself, and upon the improvement is made, the idea of landed property arose from the inseparable connection, but it is nevertheless true. But it is the value of the improvement only, not the earth itself, that is individual property. Every proprietor, therefore, of cultivated land owes to the community a ground rent for, I know no better term to express the idea for land he holds. And from the ground rent that the fund proposed in this land to issue, it is deductible. It is deductible, well as from the nature of the thing, as all his history translate to us, that the idea of land property commenced with cultivation, and that there was no such thing as land property before that time. It could not exist in the first state of man, that of hunters. It did not exist in the second state, that of shepherds. Neither Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, nor Job, as far as history of the Bible may be credited in probable things, were owners of land. Their property consists of always enumerated in flocks, herds. They travel with them from place to place. The frequent contentions at that time about the use of a well in a dry country of Arabia, where those people live, shown also was no land property. It was not admitted that land could be located as property. Now I'm not going to read all this, right? But I'm not gonna, it's not going to be a very short video. It's not going to be a very long video, rather. But I'm going to go ahead and ask this question: Is the founding fathers actually socialists and communists? I really want to ask these right-wing conservative Donald Trump supporters. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and go down to here, because I'm going to speed things up a bit. Thus, in a few words, I open the merits of this case. I proceed to the plan I have proposed, which is to create a national fund. Out of there should be paid to every person when arrived at the age of 21 years the sum of £15 sterling. How much is £15 sterling? in today's society. As a part of compensation in part for the loss of his or her natural inheritance by the introduction of the system of land property. The sum of £10 per uh, annum, that means annually, during life is every person now living of the age of 50 years and to all others who shall arrive at that age. Means by which fund is created. I have already established the principle, namely the earth in its natural uncultivated state was and ever will be continue to be the common property of the human race. That in that state, every person would been born the property. And that system of land property by the inseparable connection. It's same as the above here. Let me just go ahead and yeah. Uh, let me go to the next paragraph here. The fault, however, is not in the present processors. No complaint is indeed is intended nor ought to be alleged against them unless they adopt the crime by opposing justice. The fault is in the system, and it has stolen in perpetuity throughout upon the world, and aided afterwards by agrarian law of the sword. By the fault that can be made to inform itself by successive generations without diminishing or deranging the property of any of the present possessors, and yet the operation of the fund can commence, be in a full activity the first year of its establishment, or soon after I shall so. It is proposed that the payments already stated made to every person, rich or poor. It is the best to make it is so to prevent invidious, indivisivus, invisivus. I never heard of distinctions. It is also the right. It shall be so because it is in lieu of natural inheritance, such as a right belongs to every man over and above the property he may have created or inherited from those who did. Such persons as do not choose to receive it can throw it into the common fund, taking it then for granted that no person ought to be in the worst condition when born under is called the state of civilization. Then he would have been called, and had he been born in a state of nature, and that civilization ought to be made and ought to still make provisions for that purpose. It can be only done by subtracting from the property a portion equal to the value to the natural inheritance it has absorbed. Various various methods has been proposed for this purpose, but that which appears to be the best, not only because it operate without the reigning any present processors, but are without interfering with the collection of taxes or imposts necessary for the purposes of government and the revolution. But it will be at least troublesome and be the most affectional, and also because the subtraction will be made at a time best admits it, which is at the moment. I'm sorry. At the moment that the property is passing by the death of one person to the possession of another. In this case, the bequeather, those meaning those who are bequeathed, those who getting the gives nothing, and the receiver pays nothing. Only matter to him is that the monopoly of natural inheritance, which is there never was a right, begins to cease in his person. A generous man would not wish it to continue, and a just man will rejoice to see it abolished. My state of health prevents my making it efficient uh, in I can't pronounce the word, with the respect of the doctrines of probabilities, whereupon to found calculations with such degrees of certainty as they are capable of. What therefore I offer on its head is more the result of opposition and reflection rather than of received information. But I believe it will be founded to agree efficiency enough with the fact. In first place, taking 21 years as the epoch of maturity, all of the property of a nation, real and personal, is always in the possession of the persons above that age. It is necessary to know, as a tantrum of calculation, the average of years which persons above that age will live. I take this average to be about 30 years. For though many persons will live 40, 50, or 60 years after the age of 21 years. Others will die sooner, and some in every year of that time. By taking then 30 years as the average of time, I will give it without any material uh, uh, variation one way or the other, the average of time in which the whole property or capital of a nation, or the sum equal therefore to thereto, will be passed through one entire revolution in descent, and that is will gone by deaths to new processors for thought. In many instances, some parts of this capital will remain 40, 50, 60 years in possession of one person. Other parts will be revolved 2, 3 times before that 30 years expire, which will bring it to that average for one half the capital of a nation to revolve twice in 30 years, and it would produce the same fund as it once revolved, that as if the whole revolved once. Taken then in 30 years an average will give time without the material. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong paragraph. Then taking 30 years at the average time in which the whole capital of the nation, or the sum equal therefore is to revolve once, the 13th part therefore will be the sum of will be revolved every year. That is will go by deaths of the new. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. That's basically what he's saying. And Yeah, he got the formula right here. And I'm trying to, it's something that he said. Um, the plan proposed, which reaches the whole, will immediately relieve and take out three classes of wretchedness: the blind, the lame, and the aged poor, and will furnish the rising generation with means to prevent their becoming poor. And will do this, and it will do this without deranging or interfering with any natural nature national excuse me national measures to show that this is will be the case that is efficient to observe, and that the operation and effect of the plan will in all cases will be the same, as every individual where voluntary will make his will and deposit of his property in the manner here proposed. But it is justice, not charity. That is the principle of the plan. In all cases, it is necessary to have a principle more universally active than charity. And with respect to justice, it ought not to be left to the choice of the detached individuals whether they will do justice or not. Considering the plan on the ground of justice is ought to be the act of the whole, groveling spontaneously with out of principles of the revolution, and the representation of the rep of it will be natural, no, national, excuse me, national and not individual. A plan upon this principle would benefit the revolution by the energy that springs upon the consequences of justice. It would multiply also natural resources like for property, vegetation, and incense by offsets. When a young couple begins the world, the difference is exceedingly great whether they begin with nothing or with 15 pounds apiece. With this aid, they could buy a cow and intimates to cultivate a few acres of land instead of becoming burdens upon society, which is always the case where the children are produced faster than they can be fed. Will be put in the way of becoming useful and profitable citizen. The natural domains will also sell the better if paternally aids were proved to be cultivated them in small lots. It is practice of what has unjustly attained the name of civilization, and the practice merits not to be called charity or policy, but to make provisions for persons becoming poor or wretched. Only at a time they become so would it not, even as a matter of economy, to be better to devise means to prevent their becoming poor. This can best be done by making every person, when arrived at the age of 21 years, an inheritor of something to begin with. The rug face of society, checked uh, checked with the extremes of influence and of want, proves that some extraordinary violence have been committed upon, and the calls for justice for redress. And the great mass of the poor in all countries are becoming an inheritorial race. And is next and to impossible for them to get out of that state of themselves. It also to be observed that this mass increase in all countries that is called civilized, more persons fall annually into it than to get out of it. Let me scroll down here. There's another. I'm not gonna go read the whole thing, but um, yeah. So yeah, this is a long ass thing here. Yeah, okay. But here's the plan. That was the preface. The means of carrying the proposed plan to execution and to render it at the same time conductive to the public interest. Each canon, I think he means colony or state, whatever, shall elect in its primary assemblies 3 persons as commissioners for that canyon, who can who I can't who shall take uh cognizance and keep a register of all matters happening in that canyon uh, conformable to the charter that shall be established by law for carrying this plan into execution. The law shall be fixed the manner in which property of the deceased person shall be uh, uh, astir, um, as concerned. Number three, plant re is when the amount of the property of the deceased person can be uh, asserted, the principal heir to that property are the eldest of the heirs, and if of lawful age, or if underage, the person authorized by the will of the deceased to represent him or them shall give bond to the commissioners of the canyon pay the tenth part, therefore the within the space of 1 year, and 4 equal quartered payments or sooner, at the choice of the payers. 1/2 of the whole property shall remain as security until the bond is paid off. The bond shall be registered in the office of the commissioners of the canyon, and the original bonds and shall be deposited. Okay, he's talking about putting money in a foreign bank, Paris. Yeah, yeah. So that's in. So I like to ask the question to these conservatives. If you read this, is Thomas Paine being a socialist for asking for UBI? This is about one of the. It's not the earliest form of UBI, universal income, basic income. UBI, the idea of UBI came from, I want to say, the Greeks or the Romans. The earliest part, I would assume. But anyway, let me go over here. I'm gonna close this out with Benjamin Franklin. And since I talked about reparations and see, I have my own plan for it. And some of it stemmed from this. I took some parts of it from Benjamin Franklin's idea. Because I don't believe in just cutting the check. I think though you need to do other things rather than just saying cut me the check, FBA, AOS, and say that nonsense. I think though we gotta have a well thought out plan. I think though, for me, I think that we gotta have a 100-year, 200-year plan. To readdress everything. But then again, I would like to say I would like to have it 100 years because be simpler and I don't want to cause any more social problems. But anyway, here is Benjamin Franklin's plan to improve the conditions of the free blacks. This was Philadelphia, October 1789. Now I'm fully aware of this, as I said earlier. The business related to the free blacks shall be transacted by a committee of 24 persons annually elected by ballot at the meeting of this society in the month called April. In order to perform different services with expedition, regularity, and energy, this commission shall dissolve itself into the following subcommittees. Sorry, messing up here. The committee of inspection that shall superintend the morals, general conduct, and ordinary situations of the free Negroes and afford them advice, instruction, protection from wrongs, and other friendly office. You know, I'm kind of against this idea right here. I do believe though there needs to be, if we're gonna have a reparation, I think there needs to be a type of protection from predatory lending and predatory people who are predatory to try to take money and swindle people out of money. But but let me move on to number 2. A committee of guardians who shall choose to place out children and young people with suitable why? I think we got I don't think I'll take that out. If I was, I'll take that out. But the main ones I would be more concerned about is, is these two right here. I have always been saying education and employment is really the problem, the lack thereof. Education and employment is really my problem concerning American society, especially in African American society, right? Now, I would like to take these two ideas and put it into my own. Well, I did put it. Earlier last year, 2024. It was it December 2023 rather. I put out my reparations plan, and I emphasized these two parts from Benjamin Franklin's plan. Um, but it's a little bit differently. And a committee of education that shall superintend the school instructions of the children and the youth. May either influence the 10 regulated schools established in this city. Okay. And they shall enter in this case, provided the pupils shall receive learning as necessary of their future situation in life, especially the deep impression of the most important and generally knowledge, morals, religious. Well, okay, I might take that out, but they also shall also procure and preserve a regular record of marriages, births, manumissions of all free blacks. Okay, but like I said, let me go to, I've been harping on this education and employment. Um, Committee of employed who shall be endeavor to procure constant employment for those free Negroes who are able to work as the want of this would occasionally poverty, disease, idleness. Huh? Okay. Whatever. I ain't gonna read all that. I ain't gonna read all that. It's kind of late. I got another live stream. Oh, I, I got another live stream though. So yeah, I got another live stream I got to do. I just want to ask the right wing, because there's a lot of conservatives watching my channel. So is Thomas Paine and Benjamin Franklin, are they Marxists? Are they into DEI? You know. Anyway, we can jump off of here. See you next time. I'm out.
I am not here to debate with anyone. I have devoted all of my adult life to this subject. I only debate with my equals. All others I teach.